Hey everyone, Pastor Caleb here with another Driving Theology video. I wanted to share with you a thought that I think is not my original thought, but it is definitely a thought that I have morphed into my original thought. I heard this from a pastor that I really respect a couple years ago, and I have been sort of just dwelling on it and letting it sort of percolate in my mind a little bit, and I was reminded of it just recently, and so I wanted to share it with you. The thought was that a pastor said to me, when you're a brand new pastor out of our seminary, you preach very Lutheran sermons. Now, there could be some argument about exactly what Lutheran sermons mean and what exactly defines a Lutheran. But his point was saying that when you come out of the seminary, you have just learned what the seminary can teach you. You are very sharp on your doctrine, on your practice. You know what is right and what is not right. You have thought through these things in the incubator that is the seminary. However, there is a criticism of younger pastors, and that is that younger pastors tend to be a little bit, well, for lack of a better term, harsh. They tend to care about being right more than they tend to care about people. What happens as you get older as a pastor is you become more and more aware of how complex people's lives are and how difficult they are and how different they are from your own. Especially in our church body, because many of our pastors are first career pastors, which is a blessing. It means we have pastors for very long times, rather than second career guys who, God bless second career pastors, but they can only serve as second career pastors for maybe 20 years or so before they have to retire. First career pastors can serve for 40, 50 years even, because they're starting much earlier. But in any case, besides the point, we have a lot of first career pastors, including myself. And the type of guys who go into the pastoral ministry as their first career tend to be guys who have had a pretty stable home life growing up. They have had probably Christian parents, most likely very faithful Christian parents. Therefore, Christian parents who stayed together, or when they're in their marriage, they were probably very generous and kind with one another. More often than not, at least comparatively to the rest of the population, Wisconsin Synod pastors, that's us, me, we tend to come from these very clean homes. And so we get into the ministry and we realize that people's lives are tough, that there's a lot of challenges when you come from homes that are not like ours. And God be praised, the beauty of the gospel is that you are loved regardless of what your home life was like, regardless of how maybe seemingly on the outside put together your home life was, or your life personally. That's not the point to say that my life is objectively better or something like that. I'd actually say, in some sense, my life is objectively with blind spots, as much as I'm thankful for the upbringing that I had. Anyways, so as you get older, you become more aware of this complexity of life and the sinfulness that pervades a lot of people's lives. And therefore, you become a little bit more flexible in how you apply the teaching that you learned at seminary, because you realize nothing is black and white in the real world. That people are messy and life is messy and theology gets messy when it's applied to real people and not in the vacuum of the seminary. So this all brings me to this final thought, as this nice, look at this sun halo over my head. That's beautiful. It's accentuating the fact that I haven't got my hair all in place today. When you are a young pastor, you are very Orthodox. And when you are an old pastor, you are very pastoral. And so young pastors ought to learn from old pastors how to be pastoral, and old pastors ought to learn from young pastors how to be Orthodox. Because a properly executed pastoral ministry is one that values both. That is not willing to massage the truth or let some things slide because, well, it's messy, which tends to be the sin of the older pastor, who doesn't want to have a rigid, hard line on things where God actually does say there's a rigid, hard line. And it avoids the, at best, harshness, insensitivity, at worst, legalism of the young pastor, who knows what the right answer is, but cares more about the right answer than he does about people. And why am I telling you this? Because the vast majority of you who watch this video are most likely not going to be pastors. Ask yourself which of those you fall into. Do you tend to be somebody who cares more about what is right than about people? Or are you a person who is very empathetic, sympathetic, willing to adjust, to be flexible for people and their messy lives, but then also struggle to clearly and boldly expose what's true. We need both. And whichever of those you struggle with, ask God for wisdom so that you can do those things. Seek out friends, confidants, brothers in the ministry if you're a pastor, who can press you the opposite direction from where your weaknesses are. And in all of it, let's remember that even in the messiness, the truth of God's word is not dependent on whether we apply it correctly or not. It is dependent on Jesus, and that we are all saved by his work, not ours, his right doctrine, not ours, his compassion, not ours, his willingness to be flexible for us, not our willingness to be flexible for other people. Hopefully that helps some of you as you start to think about how you apply your Christian faith. I've been meditating on it as a young pastor who probably tends to be a little bit more concerned with what is Orthodox than what is pastoral, if I'm just being honest. And I pray that you're blessed until the next time that I get to see you guys in worship.